is a story all about how my life got flipped, turned upside down, and I'd like to take a minute, just sit right there. I'll tell you how I became the prince of a town called Bel Air.
So the black or the TV shows portrayed black people and black experiences. It reflected the portrayal of black people in those TV shows reflected the progress that was being made in the black community. And then it gave inspiration to people who were not doing as well, gave children something to aspire to, and for those who were already there, gave them something to relate to, so they could relate to people that looked like them on TV and were in a better position, who, spoke proper English and behaved like normal people on TV. And I think it just gave hope to people, and like I said, someone that they could relate to on TV.
In 1951, the first ever black sitcom was created. The Amos and Andy Show was created by Charles J. Carroll and Freeman F. Goldston. It lasted for 4 seasons until the NAACP pressured the creators to take it off air. It was not until 1968 that blacks gained the glory of having a credible sitcom. Hal Kanter had a bold idea to create a sitcom about a single black mother tackling racial issues. In 1968, the show Julia was about a white-collar black woman who raised her son in a white neighborhood. This was the first time America had ever had a white-collar black woman on television. Although the show only lasted for 3 seasons, Diane Carroll, the lead actress, said in a recent interview that she felt like this show opened the door for many other black sitcoms. Hal Kanter would later write a couple of episodes for All in the Family, which is important because All in the Family led to the spinoff of The Jeffersons. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. The 1970s ushered in many more black sitcoms. A year after Julia was canceled, Norman Lear created the show Stanford and Son in 1972, which seemed like a breakthrough for black television, because soon after Stanford and Son premiere, That's My Mama and Good Times will also premiere. Later in the 70s, the popular show What's Happening premiered. 70s black sitcoms were successful, but they still lacked a certain content. The mothers in That's My Mama and What's Happening had mammy-like features. And in Good Times, although the show stressed the importance of black community and the importance of black neighbors, they still lacked a certain complexity to them. They were more fun-loving and goofy than aware. The Jeffersons premiered in 1975. They started to challenge some of those racial problems. The writers waited until the later seasons to tackle more racial issues. The Jeffersons' success peaked in 1981 when Isabel Stanford won the Primetime Emmy for Outstanding Lead Actress in a Comedy Series. She was the first black woman to win the Oscar in that category. Sitcoms in the 80s, which soon will be a little more complex. Shows like 227, Different Strokes, The New Odd Couple, and Cosby Show all became popular or arose in the 1980s. As each sitcom premiered, they became more and more complex and tackled more and more issues in the black community. An explosion and revolution for black television was coming, as popular characters were getting spin-off from their predecessors. Shows like Family Matters and Different Worlds were spin-offs of 80s shows, which brings us to the 90s, an era where black sitcoms found a perfect balance of comedy and content. These 90s sitcoms were an example of black progress, and they had positive messages rooted in their content. These messages were important because the 90s came after the 1980s crack epidemic and mass incarcerations of blacks, which is talked about in Michelle Alexander's book, The New Jim Crow. These shows were also pushing against negative images of blacks in the media, and it gave young black women and girls something to relate to or aspire to. It's very similar to how Marcus Garvey used black dolls to promote positive imagery. The women characters of these shows were professors, businesswomen, students, mothers, and daughters. They were, in a sense, the anti-Mammy and anti-Sapphire, as they humanized black women and gave women something to aspire to.
Many sitcoms of the 90s presented the normative idea of respectability when it came to black people, but also made the plots and characters more relatable, which many felt The Cosby Show tried but failed to do. These sitcoms illustrated higher education for blacks, encouraged self-empowerment, and displayed what is now known as Black beauty. One show that illustrated the subliminal path to self-determination was A Different World. A Different World was a spin-off of The Cosby Show that was created with hopes of following the life of the Cosby's second eldest daughter, Denise, on her journey while entering her freshman year of college at Hillman University. The original idea for the show was to place a white girl in a historically black college as Denise's roommate and show her experiences in this world, hence the title. However, once the leading character decided to step away before the pilot aired, the show was quickly revamped to follow Denise. Unfortunately, the first season did not receive rave reviews, many calling it bland, unfunny, and unrelatable. Aside from that, the respectability politics came into play when Lisa Bonet, who played Denise, was asked to leave the show after they learned of her real-life pregnancy. While this may seem a bit harsh, it is also understandable, being that the pregnancy rates for teenage and adolescent blacks had increased to 12%, one of the highest it has ever been. The writers and producers did not want to portray the message that teenage pregnancy was acceptable or anything they advocated or promoted, and thus revamped the show. The second season was a refreshing change that brought about groundbreaking moments, educational opportunities, and presented issues that were ahead of its time. When Debbie Allen, the real-life sister of the Cosby's Felicia Rashad, took over as the producer, she aimed for authenticity and wanted to reflect the experience of a historical black college. This change brought about the character of Whitley, the witty, sassy, intelligent, and no-nonsense Southern belle who came from a wealthy family and never failed to educate when given the opportunity. An example of this would be Season 5, Episode 11, titled Mammy Dearest. In this episode, peers of Whitley failed to understand the importance of the Mammy figure. This sparked Whitley, and rather than shunning them, she chose to educate them on the importance of the Mammy figure, causing them to learn what she represented. Needless to say, Whitley brought something that Denise couldn't. The revitalization from the original storyline provided more developed and relatable characters, causing the show to have a great success and be deemed as one of the most important sitcoms in African American society. Furthermore, 90s sitcoms represented an internalized politics of respectability within the black community with the representations in clothing, beauty standards, and vernacular. The oversized jerseys, baggy pants, crop tops, washed denim, vibrant colors, and prints were all accessories of the Black Power movement and the cross-colors apparel. Many of the shows also displayed customs and clothing of the Divine Nine Greek life, which is something commonly only understood and explored by blacks in shows like A Different World, Martin, and Sister Sister. Moreover, we began seeing blacks not only wearing their natural hair and embracing their kinks and coils, but creating new creative styles that can primarily only be in style in those with 3B or greater hair, such as box braids. Whitley, who was deemed as being bougie and self-centered, helped teach women about their self-worth. Her high confidence about her looks, talents, and personality reminded us that we are very valuable people and should be treated in that manner. These subliminal messages increase black power and expressions of naturalness that cause blacks, especially women, to become more proud in their race and more determined for the future of African Americans.
I noticed she had a lot of authority. She seemed really powerful. Every time she spoke, it seemed like everyone was listening to her. And also, I would say she was, I guess she didn't take anyone's crap. When Will in the classroom said or did something, she gave him an assignment. And then also, I would say she was really inspiring. It showed, everyone else in the class, wanting to do the work, and they made the petition to keep her as a full-time teacher. So overall, I would say she just had a lot of impact and influence, probably, on everyone she was talking to.
The mothers in many of these sitcoms were great representations of how strong and successful black women could be. They showed how important black mothers were to the household and how they were able to lead and teach the children in the family. These sitcoms also showed how women could be the breadwinners for the family and make just as much money, if not more, than the men could. For example, Claire Huxtable from The Cosby Show was a successful lawyer, and Vivian Banks from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was a professor that earned her PhD from UCLA. This shows how black mothers were no longer confined to being stay-at-home moms, taking care of the house and children. Along with having successful careers, these mothers were also able to maintain and keep the households together. They were respected by their families, and they were able to display leadership and educate their children. This is very similar to how the women in the Nation of Islam were considered the first teachers of their children. Nation women saw education as the best expression of self-determination and the best weapon against white hegemony. This is something that these black sitcom mothers could be seen doing. Aunt Viv stands in as an African American studies teacher in Will and Carleton School and teaches them about their history in the classroom and at home.
This whole ugly episode, it's not going to affect my grade, will it?
I'm a very tough grader, Carlton.
And you're very beautiful, Mommy.
Will, there's one thing I've been wondering.
What's that?
Why did you want a course in Black history in the first place?
Because I'm interested in it.
Are you really?
Of course.
Well, you didn't seem too happy about all the work I was giving you. I mean, weren't you the one who said that if you were really interested in something, you'd study hard?
Aunt Viv, I read the autobiography of Malcolm X 3 times.
And that makes you a serious student on Black history.
But that's a very important book.
Well, baby, you can read that book. You can wear the T-shirts, you can put up the posters, and you can shout the slogans. But unless you know all the history behind it, you're trivializing the entire struggle.
Claire Huxtable is able to educate her children and their friends on feminist issues and make them more aware. She also offers them advice and guidance through struggles they may face. These mothers prove to be the backbones of the on-screen families, juggling work along with taking care of the family at home. This struggle can be seen when Harriet Winslow, Family Matters, comes home from work to find the house is a mess.
Carl, you promised me you were going to help out around here.
Oh, well, now, sweetheart, I am. And the best way that I can help out is to get out the way while you do your thing, babe.
While I do my thing. Carl, we've gone over this 100 times. I've asked you to help out, and you say you will, and then I end up doing it all by myself.
Well, sweetheart, is it my fault that you don't wait long enough?
Wait! For what? The fruit flies to build a condo in the sink?
Well, excuse me, Harriet, but I happen to work a 50-hour week. When I come home, I am bone tired.
Carl, I work too, and I'm way past bone tired. I need a nap to get to bone tired.
This leads to more real-life conversations about how men and women in the household should divide their work in the modern era. These sitcoms were important because it allowed black women to see a different representation of them on television. It showed that it was in fact very possible for them to become successful in the workplace and have a wonderful family. They didn't have to choose one. This was something that was previously not seen on TV. In an interview with CNN, Amanda Rodriguez, an African-American mother of 3, said, "I went to college and majored in criminology because I thought I was going to be a lawyer. I'm going to be a lawyer like the Cosby mom. I'm going to have kids, and I'm going to have this big family and have it all." In a study done by The Root in 2014, they found that 64% of black female workers are in white-collar jobs. This further proves that these shows and their representation of black mothers really did have a real-world effect on black women.
Moesha, who is played by singer Brandy, is a 90s sitcom that depicts the life and times of a black teenager living in Leimert Park, a neighborhood in Los Angeles, California. Like Moody, Moesha too had to transition into adulthood while facing many obstacles. For years since her mother died, Moesha Mitchell had taken care of her father Frank and younger brother Miles. However, when a teacher at her school, Dee, marries Frank, Moesha feels her territory being infiltrated by a new stepmother. Although Moesha's home life may not be identical to that of Moody's, Moody shared similar experiences. Moody's mother was not fond of Moody's lifestyle and activism, just like Moesha's father Frank, who refused to witness his pumpkin adulting. especially in Moesha's experiences with boyfriends like Q. Shows like Moesha exhibit the lifestyle of young African American women residing in both working and middle-class households in the 90s. Shows like Moesha provided young women with the sense of hope to overcome obstacles faced in their coming of age. When interviewed by Los Angeles Daily News, Brandy stated, "It's a show about reality. We talk about things that kids can relate to, like best friends being there for you no matter what. There are sad moments and there are happy moments." Just like Moesha had her sad and happy moments, Moody did as well. From living through times of civil rights, Moody was at the front line of well-recognized Black-led social movements and events. Moesha and Moody both reject Darlene Clark Hines' culture of dissemblance during their coming of age. Moody, of course, defies their lifestyles of her mother and family and pushes against white supremacist forces. Likewise, in an episode of Moesha, Moesha calls out her white manager for being racist towards Black customers. The women in the Black Panther Party would have supported the writers of Moesha for having a Black female lead. There were issues women in the Black Panther Party wanted to fix in society within the party itself. Moesha and Moody display Alice Walker's womanism as well. In an episode of Moesha, a girl named Mary Ellen gets pregnant and Moesha defends her in front of the school after hearing slander against Mary Ellen's name. We see the same with Moody when she helps two younger girls go to school by using her paycheck to buy them clothes and supplies. Both support other women on a personal level, which supports the term womanism rather than feminism. Through their coming of age, we see similarities and differences between Moody and Moesha. With more flexibility of delivering messages to the Black community, shows like Moody continue to mirror the lives of Black people while simultaneously encouraging the community to push forward toward Black self-determination.
I'd say substance. I think it's a different market, and there's so many options. Like cable TV is not, what it is today is not what it was back then. You don't have cell phones all the time. So people don't just watch TV now. Most people, particularly if you break it down to demographics, they're on their cell phone, they're on their laptop, they have an iPad or something like that, and they're watching TV. So it's different. So the dictates of television are we gotta get an audience that will come back, and we also have to compete with streaming services and cable. So it's a different space. Back then, particularly in the 90s, you didn't have as much access. So if you had a show on television, a Black show, you kind of had a captive audience because there weren't that many Black shows on. But now there are options. I could watch Netflix if I want to. I could watch HBO Go, or I could not watch any of that. I could do something else. There's just so much more out there. So I think the quality, the depth, and the writing aren't as up to par as they were on a lot of the 90s shows. But kind of like you mentioned with A Different World, I think that show almost got canceled after the first season. But then Susan Fels comes over as one of the executive producers, and then people like Debbie Allen are responsible for what happened later. And so she took some of the cast and crew, production folk to HBCU so they could see what it was like to attend an HBCU. And then some of the people had actually went to them, so they know. So I think that's why that show comes off as authentic. And then the people who were writing as well as the actors were saying, we need to talk about intimate partner violence, or we need to talk about apartheid, or we should have a conversation on voting. There was an episode that I saw recently where this guy was incarcerated and he's a pen pal of Freddie's. So they deal with issues like that. What are issues that you have when you re-enter society? How do people treat you? What's the perception? So those kind of issues were discussed all the time on that show. And it's not like those issues don't matter now. They probably do, more so. But I think television is, generally speaking, it's pretty bland. Not bland as in there's not a variety of shows, but bland in terms of dealing with depth and the issues that it explores. Maybe you get lucky and you find a show that is insightful, entertaining, and offers some kind of level of, let's think about this. I think shows like Atlanta, for example, or even shows that are, online, like The Adventures of the Awkward Black Woman, which then became Insecure. You do have these moments where shows are able to sort of capture both people's imagination and then, educate them at the same time.
As you've seen, Black women in 90s sitcoms played an important role in guiding the Black community in the path of self-determination. With writers assigning Black women as roles of educated wives, mothers, and young adults, the Black community, especially its youth, had someone to look up to. The women depicted in Black sitcoms almost mirrored the significant Black female activists who lived during the civil rights era. Hidden messages were given in many episodes about connecting to African culture, which we see in characters' clothing. Lessons were taught on educating oneself, which we see in many discussions of HBCUs, something women in Black nationalist organizations would have supported. Black Panther women would have supported characters to encourage the audience to stand for social justice, which we see in the episodes focused on racism and sexism. Without these roles Black women played in sitcoms during the 90s, young Black women would not have anyone really to look up to or identify with. These shows sent messages only the Black community would understand, and this is a tool that contributed to Black self-determination.